Computer programs often need to store and reuse data. Think about things like names, numbers, lists, data which you'll store and reuse maybe multiple times. In Go or in any programming language, we typically store these variables in memory using variables. And so we can think of variables as like little boxes in memory which we give a name, a reference which we can easily reuse. And then when we want to reuse that data, we just look for a variable of that name. And so in this one, I'm going to show you how we can declare a variable using the short variable declaration syntax. And then in a later lesson, I'll show you a different way of doing it. And so here, let's just store a name in a variable. So we will call the variable person. And so notice I'm not prefixing it with anything, we're just using normal letters here. And then what we use is this syntax here. So it's a colon followed by an equal sign. And this means that we are declaring the variable as well as adding a value to it. And so we will say that the value in this scenario is going to be Alice. What that means is that the variable person holds the value Alice. Okay, now something to be aware of here is that Go is a strictly typed language. And so what that means is that this person variable has to have a type. In this case, that type will be a string. Now, when we use the short declaration syntax, what Go will do is it will look at the value and it will determine the type itself. When we come to set variables using a different way later on, we're going to manually set the type ourselves. But in this scenario, Go is going to look at that, look at the data and think, okay, that's a string. So the person variable now holds the string Alice. And so if we wanted to change the data here, we couldn't then change it to a number or a different type. It could only hold a string. Okay, let's do another one. So here we're going to say age, and we'll just set this to 35. And then let's just continue to do what we've been doing so far and just print this out using the println function on the format package. Again, don't worry, we're going to be covering packages and functions later on, but just know for now that if we want to print out the value of this variable, we can use the println function. So here, I'm going to say println person, and we'll do the same again for age. Can you remember how we run this? We're going to say go run main.go. And so as you can see, both of those things get printed out, Alice 35. Okay, so hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Why not have a go at a little challenge in order to make sure that this knowledge has stuck? So I'm going to delete all that and I'm just going to drop some comments in here. So what you need to do here is create a program that declares three variables using the short variable declaration syntax. And then one variable should hold the name of a city, another should hold a number representing the current year, and a third variable should hold a decimal number like a temperature or a price. So basically something with a decimal point in there. So why not pause me now and give that a go. Okay, so let's give this a go. We're going to use a short declaration syntax. So I'll say city is Manchester and the year is 2025 at the time of recording, and the third should hold a decimal number. Why not go with pi? So pi is 3.142. Okay, all we need to do now is just print these out one by one. And then again, run this with go run main.go. And you'll see Manchester 2025 3.142 being printed out. Okay, now we use the short variable declaration syntax like this when we're initially declaring the variable. When we want to actually change the value or set another value to the variable, what we do is we just use the equals sign. So here, for example, I can change the year now to 2026. And what this will do is it will overwrite what was done there. Now, if you notice the subtle difference between those two lines of code, this one here, because the variable has already been declared when we created it here, we don't use the colon the second time round. What we're doing here is we're just assigning a different value to it. So let's just go and run this. Okay, perfect. So now you see 2026, we've changed the value. Now, remember when I said this is a strictly typed language, it means that we can't even assign a decimal value to what is an integer value. So for example, if I wanted to set the year to 20.26 instead of 2026, I'm getting some red underlining here. If I hover my mouse over this, you'll see that it says 20.26 cannot be represented by the type int. So the year variable, when we assigned it this 2025 here, what happened was Go set year to be of type integer. And so what that means, because Go is strictly typed, is that we cannot later set it to a decimal value. Let's see what might happen if we run this. So as you can see, we get an error. Okay, so we've just declared our first variables. Hope you had a go at the challenge. If you want YouTube to keep showing you Go Bytes, then make sure that you're subscribed, and why not give this video a like. And if you want to hear more about my Go content in your mailbox, I'll leave the address in the description.